Hello, I am Jamila McMallow, life and relationship strategist for powerful, driven women coaches and business owners. Today, I'm talking to you about something that I am very much a proponent of, believe in, and really work with my clients to develop personally. Hey, how you doing? And that is affirmations. So what I'm going to share with you in this video is 3 mistakes that you may be making if you're finding that your affirmations are not working or as effective as you would like them to be. But first and foremost, let me just kind of explain what an affirmation is. So if you kind of think of your brain as like a computer, we always have programs, as it were, running in the background, which are essentially our belief system, the constructs that we have for different things. And no matter what, it's telling us what's true, what we're allowed to have, our relationship with money, how we view men, how we view marriage, how we view relationships, everything. It's based on this set of beliefs that are running in our brain that were typically developed when we were children, okay? And either it was from things that we saw, experienced, or a lot of times it's from stuff that was put on us, the messaging that we received from our parents or caregivers. So these are always running on a subconscious, unconscious level, and many of them at times are negative or restrictive. So that's why they're often referred to as limiting beliefs. So you grow up, you become an entrepreneur, and then that's when you become faced with them. Why? Because when you a lot of times become a business owner or an entrepreneur, you're now faced with all your own stuff. It's not an employer telling you how much you're worth, placing a value on you by just telling you what your salary is going to be, but rather now you have to develop a way to be okay with, well, what do I charge? And how do I get clients? And, your confidence comes up, all these different things. And it's because you're trying to expand and become more, and you've hit the limits of your beliefs. Your beliefs are like, whoa, you can't do that. We don't do that. No. And so you smack up against them. And it's when you feel that resistance, that like, why is this all of a sudden becoming so hard? Or it feels like it's just not, it's because your program that's running doesn't align with where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do. So positive affirmations are an excellent way to combat limiting beliefs. Now, there's, of course, an extra step in there, and I'm going to touch on that as my last point of 3. But the first point I want to explain to you about a positive affirmation is that if you find that they don't work for you, probably your biggest challenge is you're not being consistent. As I said, you are always affirming something because it's going on subconsciously and consciously in your mind. So I love it when people say, oh, I don't believe in positive affirmations, or, oh, I don't. And I just laugh to myself. I'm like, you ain't got to believe in nothing, because you're always affirming something, whether you're consciously doing it or not. And if you have programs or limiting beliefs running in your mind that are holding you back, and you are not intentionally, deliberately, and proactively doing something to counteract that, then you will continue to hit the limits of your beliefs and find yourself continually starting and stopping, or only getting to a certain point, never being able to break past a certain income barrier, never being able to accumulate money and keep it. For example, if you have an us versus them mentality towards wealthy people, if you, if you align yourself as someone who's like the underdog or always suffering or the struggle, then when you get money, you get it, right? And you may have no problem making it. But if you have a negative, judgmental attitude towards wealthy people who are simply people who have learned how to keep their money and make it grow, that's it. If you have a negative attitude towards them, if you have a judgmental view towards them, guess what you're never going to be? Your mind is not going to allow you to become wealthy because you view that as something negative. Okay? So sure, you can get money, but you will never keep it until you shift your belief around what it means to be a wealthy person, and shift it from something negative to something positive to something that's okay for you to be. And that's just a very simple example, okay? So you can see how if you have something like that, or if you even have the belief that all men are liars, and you keep going out and trying to date men, and you find that every man confirms what I already believe to be true, that's because you're going out with that belief system and your mind is going to prove you right. Okay, yes, you will continue to attract and deal with liars. And even if you, by some chance, meet a really great guy, marry him, you're going to find yourself really having a hard time in your marriage, and you're not going to be able to really put your finger on it or understand it, because what's happening is you're with a man who does not align with your belief system. If your belief system is that all men are liars and you're now married to a man who's honest and has integrity, your mind's going crazy. Your brain's going, woo, and it's like, this doesn't make sense. And you will find yourself creating drama or feeling uncomfortable. And it's only because your belief system is being challenged and it's trying to prove you right. It's kind of like, does not compute. Again, meaning you have to do the work on that. You have to shift that. You have to change that. Doesn't have anything to do with your husband. Just like the other one I mentioned, doesn't have anything to do with wealthy people. It has to do how you view and perceive these things from your belief system and your constructs. So positive affirmations is a way to combat that. So number one, consistency is key. So if your affirmations are not working, it's because you may not be consistent. And because your programs are constantly running, because those limiting beliefs are constantly running, you have to understand the way that we learn as human beings is through repetition. It's how we learn. Now, one thing, have you ever learned that you heard it one time and you were like, ooh, I got that? No, you had to hear it again and again, and then another way, and then, oh, the same thing said to you 10 different ways until finally it's sunk in and you're like, I got it. Okay? That's how we learn. And so consistency is key. The best time is first thing in the morning before you roll out of bed. I record mine and listen to them because I find that's the easiest way to do it. Okay. And then when you're falling asleep at night, and that way it's really sinking into your mind and it's what you're marinating on all night. And for me, it allows me to wake up happier because I've been dwelling on these positive, good things all night. It's the last thing I've left on my brain. You know as well as I do that if you fall asleep watching a movie or watching TV or whatever the last thing you do is, it kind of stays in your mind all night. And especially if you're watching something, sometimes you end up having some weird dreams. So why not fall asleep listening and making the last thing you do be something positive, telling yourself positive things that you want to believe are true for you and your life and your relationships, okay? So that's number one. Consistency is key. Number two is your affirmations may not be working because they're poorly written. Now, Instagram and Facebook are notorious for having people who love to share these affirmation memes. And I always cringe because I see people posting memes with affirmations. Oh, this is an affirmation for this. And it'll have no in it or never or can't or don't. And I'm like, no. Your affirmations cannot contain negative words. And by negative, I mean cannot. I mean words like no. I mean words like never. I mean words like don't, because your mind doesn't hear that. So think about a statement that you've been saying to yourself that has the negative word in it. Now take the negative word out. That's what your mind hears. That's what you're affirming. Yeah, that's what you're affirming. So they're not written properly. Okay. The second step is if you are focusing on a problem in your affirmation, that's also is going to put the focus on the problem and you're reaffirming and confirming the problem. A good example might be, for example, if you're a person who's always late, you wouldn't want to say as an affirmation, I am never late. Okay. Why? First of all, it says never. That's negative. And second of all, it says late. And being late is a problem. So that's kind of a negative word, kind of a negative connotation. Why would you want to reaffirm that for yourself? Okay. So a better way to write that, would be, if you're someone who struggles with being on time, would be, you could say something like, I am so happy and grateful that I am always on time. Or I am so happy and grateful that I am such a great planner. Or something to that effect. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're not saying you're late. You're kind of saying what the opposite is of that, or what the solution would be if you were not a person who was late. It means I do well at managing my time. I am so wonderful at managing my time and showing up before events start. You know, something to that effect. You're speaking into the positive, you're speaking into the solution, and that's what you're affirming to your mind. In a sense, you're trying to convince yourself that, no, this is now our new belief. This is now our new truth, so that your thoughts produce feelings that produce actions that allow you to now then become this person who is on time. Okay. So that's second, the affirmations that you're using may be poorly written. Now, this is something that I work with my clients on to create personalized affirmations. I believe it is very important that your affirmations speak specifically to what it is that you want to work on. And they have to grow with you. So the affirmations you had 6 months ago are not still going to be working, or if they shouldn't be, because you should have grown and assimilated those. And you'll feel it because you're listening to me. You're like, yeah, I know that's right. And then okay, it's sunk in. But you'll also, for example, as a business owner, maybe you have a new goal. Maybe you raised your prices. Maybe you want to increase the number of clients you're working with. Maybe you have a new program that you're going to be launching. Well, you want to start talking to yourself about that in a positive way. And so then you would need to make an adjustment to your affirmations as you're doing those daily. Because remember, consistency is key. And then making sure that they are well written, because poorly written affirmations may actually end up sabotaging you versus helping you. Okay. Now, the third point is, when it comes to affirmations, is that if your affirmation is linked to a deeper underlying emotional wound, it may not work, because you're actually going to have to deal with the wound that's underneath. And so, for example, if you're a person who struggles with issues of self-worth, you're a woman and you feel like you're not worthy, deserving of love. And the reason is, maybe when you were a little girl, your father abandoned the family and went off, and you never heard from him again. He didn't show up on weekends for visits, et cetera, et cetera. And it just made you feel like what the message you internalized as a little girl is that you weren't important. And if your own father, who created you and made you, didn't think you were worthy enough of his time and attention, then who would? And so you find yourself getting into relationships with men that are toxic, etc. If you have that struggle, right, around worthiness, and then you start trying to say, hey girl, and then you start trying to say an affirmation like, I am so worthy and deserving of the love of a good man. Well, guess what? You're going to have a visceral reaction when you say that. You're going to be like, ugh. You might feel like some anxiety or some anxiousness, but you're going to feel like, ugh. And the reason is because it's going up against a very deeply entrenched belief that you have that is connected to a very deep, painful, emotional wound that has not been dealt with and healed. And no amount of affirmations is going to cover over that. When it comes to that, when it comes to something that's linked to a deep emotional wound, you actually have to go in, deal with the wound, uncover it, acknowledge it, release it, and allow it to heal and process. And then now you have created the space to input those positive things that you now want to replace that story or that belief that came out of that painful experience. This is something that I do with my clients all the time. It's a big part of the work that we do together because it's so essential to you becoming the next version of yourself. A lot of the beliefs that we have are from painful, traumatic experiences, and no amount of just talking about it in the opposite way is going to change anything. We actually have to go in and do the work, and you are going to need someone to help you with this. Why? Because when you don't know what you're what can end up happening essentially is that you will uncover some deep emotions, bring it up, but then you don't know what to do. You don't know how to complete the process. So you end up just being irritated and feeling like all the time. And so this is why you want to get help. If you find that a particular affirmation is linked to a deep emotional wound, you're going to need somebody to guide you through that process of healing the wound and allowing, like I said, to create that space to then input the good stuff. The positive affirmations are the good stuff that you want to think about yourself, your life, your business, your relationships, your money, all of it. Okay. So just to review, as you can see, I love affirmations, but just to review, the 3 keys to having affirmations that work are: number 1, you have to be consistent. You can't be thinking that you can skip a day or start and stop and anything is going to sink into your brain when you have a non-stop series of negative programs or beliefs playing all the time in your head that you're trying to combat. So you have to be consistent day and night, okay? Every day. Number 2 is you have to have your affirmations be well written. A poorly written affirmation is not going to help you. In fact, it may actually sabotage and reconfirm the negative belief or way of being that you've been embodying for all this time. So it may not actually help you at all. And the third thing is if an affirmation, if there's an area that you really are trying to shift and change and you realize that it's linked to a much deeper emotional wound, that means you have work to do there first. The affirmation is not going to fix it. You have to actually do the work to uncover the wound, acknowledge the story, release the pain, and allow yourself to process and heal from that. And like I said, that's something I do with my clients all the time and time again. It's a big part of my accelerated inner healing process, okay? So I hope those 3 points were very helpful to you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment below. Feel free to share it with a friend who you think needs to hear this. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to comment below or send me a DM. And especially if you'd like more information on working with me, you're welcome to DM me, or you can click the link in my bio at Coach Jamila LV and learn more about my programs. And also, you can take a look at my free webinar, which is Your Independence as a Woman versus Your Marriage. So if you're a very powerful, driven, coach, business owner, woman, and you're married and you feel like you're having this struggle between being independent and part of a unit, then you're really going to love this free webinar because it just kind of breaks it down for you and helps you to see that there is no conflict. You just believe it is because of, like I said, those beliefs and constructs. So it's very insightful and I think you'll enjoy it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching and I look forward to seeing you here. Thank you ladies who are here on live and for those of you who are watching the replay.